Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We look forward to this Shabbos, which is a special one. It is Parshat Parah, in which there's a special Torah reading about the Parah Duma, the red heifer, for us to remember and commemorate how the Jewish people all would have to purify themselves before Pesach if they're planning on partaking of a carbon Pesach. There's a special reading. According to some, there's a mitzvah, even a Torah mitzvah to hear it. And so another reason to make it a shul this Shabbos. When the red heifer would have been offered, the Parah Duma, when such a red cow would be born, it would be slaughtered, its blood sprinkled, and then the entire animal would be burnt, and it would create ashes which would be stored, and one little speck of those ashes, when mixed with spring water, could be sprinkled on people to purify themselves. And when such a Parah Duma would be offered, it was quite an ordeal. It was quite an event. It would happen once in a lifetime of a person, and it was a very special moment for everyone who was in Yerushalayim. If you'd like to know more about it, there really is a very interesting description, an essay with artistic renditions to give you a sense of what it was like in this email from the Temple Institute of Israel, and please check that out if you're interested. And in that essay, it quotes from the Mishnah, which explains that when, in the days of the Beis HaMikdash, when the sages, when the Kohanim would offer one of those rare red heifers, red cows, there was a problem that they had to solve, and this was the problem. You see, normally we would rely on certain presumptions, certain statistical majorities, but when the Parah Duma was burnt, it was felt that it was necessary that all those involved, and in particular the Kohen, presumably the Kohen Gadol, who would slaughter and sprinkle and burn the Parah Duma, that he would be absolutely pure. Now the problem is everyone, even a Kohen, comes in contact with a dead body at a funeral of a relative, or perhaps by mistake. And so in order to make sure that the Kohen Gadol would be pure, he would have to be sprinkled with the ashes of the preceding Parah Duma. But the problem is, we would also want to make sure that that person sprinkling the Kohen Gadol was also pure. And how do we know if that person was pure? Well, he would then have to be sprinkled, but maybe that sprinkler wasn't pure. So there needed to be someone who we were absolutely certain, with 100% certainty, was pure and had never come in contact with a dead body. And the question is, how can you find such a person? Everyone goes to a funeral, everyone goes into a cemetery, and even if not, how could you be certain? Maybe when he was walking along the streets of Yerushalayim or outside of the city, maybe underneath the person's feet was buried a dead body in an unmarked grave. Maybe not likely, but it is possible. So how can you find someone who never knowingly or even unknowingly, in the slightest chance, ever came in contact directly or even walked over a grave? And so the Mishnah describes an incredible thing. There's an area set aside in Yerushalayim. They dug down to bedrock to make sure that there are no bodies buried. And then women who volunteered would move into that area until they would give birth, and they would have children. And then they would stay there, living a small community, raising their children until they were 7 or 8 or 9 or so years old, until they would move out. And if a Parah Duma would be born, and one that they would want to offer and burn its ashes, they would take one of those children still living in that designated safe area in Yerushalayim, that we knew that child was pure. And that child would be taken on top of an animal in such a way that also the child would not become impure if it rode over an unknown, unmarked grave. The child would go down to the Mei Shiluach spring, would draw water, and then take that water to the Beis HaMikdash, would take some of the previous ashes, and then that child who he knew was pure would mix those ashes with the spring water and sprinkle it upon the Kohen Gadol, who would be the one who would slaughter and burn and offer the new Parah Duma. Now, there's a technical reason why this entire system was necessary and why we needed that child, to make sure that there was someone who had, again, never come in contact with a dead body. But besides for the technical reasons, there is something incredibly powerful. Imagine the scene. Let us imagine is the Kohen Gadol, a great sage of old age, revered, venerated, and he is standing in his special Kohen Gadol vestments in the Beis HaMikdash, and he must present himself before a young child, a 6, 7, 8-year-old, sweet, pure in every way child, and be sprinkled by that child. What an expression of humility. He stands before the child. And for all those who would witness it, the symbolism is clear that the source of purity, the most pure thing in the world, what ultimately must purify the Kohen Gadol to create a Paraduma, a source of purity, is a young, beautiful Jewish child. That is the most pure thing in the world, and it was specifically a child. There are the technical halachic reasons, but there's something deeper here. There's a symbolism, a message. It is specifically a child that is the source of purity that can create a paraduma. There is a quote from Rav Soloveitchik that has always stayed with me, that our Judaism, our connection to Hashem, the way we study Torah and serve and perform mitzvos, should never be childish. Should never be childish. But it should be childlike. On the one hand, our service of Hashem should be sophisticated, should be deep, should be well thought out. On the other hand, there is a place for purity, simplicity, faith. There is a child within each of us. We should always remember what it's like to be a child. We should never become too sophisticated, too smart for our own good. We should look at our own children. We should look at the children in the shul, children in our extended family. They are beautiful. They are pure. And when you hear a child daven to Hashem, say the Parshat, say a bracha, it is beautiful. Even the Kohen Gadol, the great Kohen Gadol, had to stand before a child, to look that child in his face and sense that purity. And so to all of us, no matter how old we get, no matter how sophisticated we get, no matter how much Torah we know and struggle with, and deep philosophical or ethical questions, let us always remember there's a child inside of us. Let us remember what it's like to stand before Hashem as a child, to have wonder and joy in seeing Hashem's world, have wonder and joy in studying Hashem's Torah, in davening to Hashem, in singing with others. Let us always remember that we have that child inside of us. There is nothing more pure or more beautiful than a child standing before Hashem. And no matter how old we get, we can always be that child. Good Shabbos, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom.